There are two documents in this video. One is over 1,000 years old, a runic inscription naming a Viking warrior. The other was printed last year, a surname on a modern passport. They contain the same word. The naming system the Vikings used, the system that produced names like Eriksson, BJÖRNSEN, Ragnarsson, and OLSSEN, was so deeply embedded in Scandinavian culture that Norway kept using it in an almost identical form until 1923, less than a century ago. That means if you carry a Norwegian surname today, you are carrying a name built from the same elements, the same words, the same cultural logic as a Viking warrior who sailed from the Norwegian coast over 1,000 years ago. Today, we're going to decode 20 of those names, what they mean, where they come from, and what they tell you about the people who bore them first. Before we begin, I want to be completely honest with you about something, because this video deserves honesty, and so do you. Norwegian surnames did not work the way modern surnames work until 1923, when Norway passed its First Names Act, the Lovompersonloven. Before that year, most Norwegians used what's called a patronymic system, a system where your surname wasn't a fixed family name, but a description of who your father was. If your father was named Erik, you were Eriksson, Erik's son. If your father was named Björn, you were Björnsen. If his father was named something else entirely, he had a completely different surname. The name changed with every generation. This is the same system the Vikings used. It is not a coincidence. It is a direct, unbroken continuation. When Leif Erikson sailed to North America around the year 1000 AD, his name told you exactly one thing. His father was Erik. Erik the Red, to be precise, the man who discovered and settled Greenland. So here is what these Norwegian surnames actually prove. They prove that your family used the same naming system built from the same Old Norse word elements as the people we call Vikings. The name elements Bjorn, Ulf, Gunnar, Sigurd, Ragnar, Ivar, Einar, Leif are documented in Viking Age sources. The Icelandic sagas, the Landnámabók, runic inscriptions across Scandinavia, and historical chronicles from England, Ireland, and France. What they cannot prove with absolute certainty is that a specific ancestor was a Viking warrior. But they do something more interesting than that. They carry 1,000 years of linguistic DNA, frozen fragments of the Old Norse language, walking around in the world today as the last names of living people. 20 of those names, let's decode them. Number 20, HANSEN. The most common Norwegian surname and a direct line to the Viking world. We start with the most common surname in Norway and the one that at first glance looks the least remarkable, HANSEN. As of 2022 statistics from Statistics Norway, HANSEN is the single most common surname in the country, held by 49,503 people. It means simply son of Hans, but Hans is itself a compressed form of Johannes, the biblical name John. And here is where the Viking connection hides. The patronymic structure that created HANSEN is identical to the structure that created Ragnarsson or Eriksson in the Viking Age. The suffix sen is a Norwegian variation of the Old Norse son, meaning son of. The Vikings used the system. Medieval Norwegians used the system, and modern Norwegians used the system until 1923, when the government required everyone to lock in a hereditary surname. HANSEN is the Viking naming system, still alive, just wearing a more recent given name. Number 19, Eriksson, the name of the man who found America half a millennium before Columbus. If one name on this list has earned the right to be called truly Viking, it is this one. Eriksson, or in its Swedish and Icelandic form, Eriksson, means son of Erik. And the most famous bearer of the patronymic form was Leif Erikson, son of Erik the Red, who sailed from Greenland to the coast of North America around the year 1000 AD, approximately 500 years before Christopher Columbus. The name Eiríkur in Old Norse means eternal ruler, from E meaning ever, always, and Rækur meaning ruler, powerful. It was one of the most common Viking Age personal names, documented extensively in the sagas and in runic inscriptions across Scandinavia. Every Eriksson or Eriksson alive today carries the surname of a patronymic tradition that stretches back directly to this Viking Age name. The chain is unbroken, same suffix, same root, same system. Number 18, BJÖRNSEN, BJÖRNSEN, BJÖRNSEN. The Bearman, strength as identity. This name requires no translation to feel its meaning. Björn or Bjorn in Norwegian orthography means bear. It was one of the most common Viking Age personal names documented in the sagas and runic inscriptions, and it appears constantly in the historical record of the Viking world. The most famous historical bearer was Bjorn Ironside, son of the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, who led Viking raids deep into France and the Mediterranean in the 9th century. He was said to be so formidable in battle that no weapon could wound him, earning him the byname Ironside. A person named Björnsen today is literally the son of a bear man. In Viking culture, naming your son Bear was not metaphorical, it was aspirational. It expressed the strength, ferocity, and endurance you wanted your child to embody. Every Björnsen carries a predator's name frozen in the patronymic system, walking quietly through the modern world. Number 17, Ragnarsson, Ragnarsson, son of the warrior counseled by gods. Few names in the entire Norse tradition carry as much historical and legendary weight as Ragnar. Ragnar, the Old Norse form, combines Regan, which means advice and counsel, specifically divine counsel, and Her, which means army and warrior. The name means approximately warrior whose counsel comes from the gods or army's divine judgment. It was a name that expressed the highest possible military aspiration, a warrior guided by divine wisdom. The legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, whose historical existence is debated but whose influence on the Viking sagas is undeniable, was said to have sons who became some of the most feared Viking leaders in history: Bjorn Ironside, Ivar the Boneless, Sigurd Snake in the Eye, and Ubba, who led the great heathen army that invaded England in 865 AD and nearly conquered the entire island. A person named Ragnarsson today carries a name that was, in the Viking Age, associated with kings and legendary warriors. The name is documented in the sagas, in historical chronicles from England and France, and in runic inscriptions across Scandinavia. Number 16, SIGURDSEN, SIGURDSEN, the guardian of victory, hero of the greatest Norse saga. Sigurd from Old Norse Sigurdur combines Sigur meaning victory and Vardr meaning guardian or warden. The Sigurd of Norse mythology is the guardian of victory, and the name was not merely aspirational, it was programmatic. Sigurd the Dragon Slayer is the central hero of the Volsunga saga, the greatest of the Old Norse heroic sagas, the story that directly inspired J.R.R. Tolkien's work and was the basis for Richard Wagner's opera cycle Der Ring des Nibelungen. In the saga, Sigurd kills the dragon Fafnir, bathes in its blood, which makes his skin nearly invulnerable, and claims the cursed treasure of the Nibelungs. The name was not mythological in origin, it was a real documented Viking Age personal name carried by historical figures including King Sigurd I of Norway, called the Crusader, who led a Norwegian crusade to the Holy Land between 1107 and 1110 and was the first European king to personally complete a crusade. Sigurdsson, son of Sigurd, is the son of a guardian of victory. The name connects directly to both the historical and the legendary core of the Norse world. Number 15, ULFSEN, ULFSEN, son of the wolf, the most dangerous of all Viking names. If Bjorn expressed the bear's strength, Ulf expressed something darker and more complex, the wolf. In Old Norse, Ulfr means wolf, and in Viking culture, the wolf carried a specific set of meanings that went far beyond the animal itself. Wolves were the companions of Odin, the chief god, Jerry and Freki. His two wolves flanked him at all times. The wolf was a symbol of ferocity, cunning, and crucially, the outsider, the creature that lived beyond the boundaries of human civilization and answered to no law. A specific category of Viking warrior was the Ulfadin, the wolfskin warrior who wore a wolf pelt in battle and was said to channel the wolf spirit. This was a variant of the Berserker tradition, warriors who fought in a trance-like state of extraordinary ferocity, considered invulnerable to ordinary weapons. The name Ulf appears constantly in Viking Age sources, in the sagas, in runic inscriptions, and in historical chronicles. One of the most famous was ULFSEN, a Norwegian chieftain who served as a marshal under King Harald Hardrada. ULFSEN today means son of the wolf, and that wolf was very likely named for a warrior tradition that went back to the Viking Age itself. Number 14, GUNNARSEN and GUNNARSEN, son of the bold warrior. Gunnar, from Old Norse Gunnar, is one of the most directly military names in the entire Norse naming tradition. It combines Gunnar meaning war or battle, and R meaning warrior. Gunnar means without ambiguity, bold warrior. In the Icelandic saga tradition, Gunnar of Hlíðarendi is one of the most celebrated figures in Njál's saga, considered the greatest of the Icelandic family sagas. He is described as the most accomplished warrior of his generation, skilled in all weapons, extraordinarily strong, and possessing a moral code that ultimately led to his death. Surrounded by enemies who had come to kill him, Gunnar defended his farm alone for longer than any man should have been able to, until his bowstring broke and he asked his wife Hallgerdur for a lock of her hair to replace it. She refused. He died fighting. The name Gunnarsson, son of a bold warrior, carries this tradition directly. It is documented as a Viking Age personal name in the sagas, in historical records, and in runic inscriptions across Scandinavia and the Viking diaspora. Number 13, IVARSEN, son of the bow warrior and the most feared of all Ragnar's sons. Ivar, from Old Norse Ivar, combines ER and R. Ivar means you warrior or bow warrior. The most historically significant bearer of this name was Ivar the Boneless, one of the sons of Ragnar Lothbrok, who co-led the Great Heathen Army that invaded England in 865 AD. The Great Heathen Army was not a typical Viking raid. It was a full-scale military invasion, a force large enough to march across England, defeat multiple Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, and set the stage for what became the Danelaw, a region of England governed under Norse law for decades. Ivar the Boneless is documented in historical chronicles, including the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. His byname the Boneless has been interpreted in several ways, possibly a reference to extreme flexibility, a physical condition, or a way of describing his particular method of fighting. IVARSEN, son of Ivar, carries the name of a warrior tradition that changed the course of English history. Number 12, HARALDSEN and HARALDSEN, son of the army ruler, the name of Norway's first king. Harald, from Old Norse Haraldur, combines Har, meaning army, and Aldur, meaning ruler or leader. Harald means army ruler, and no name in Norwegian history carries a more significant weight than this one. Harald Fairhair, Harald Haraldsson in Norwegian, is credited with being the first king of all Norway, who unified the Norwegian kingdoms following his victory at the Battle of Hafrsfjord, traditionally dated to around 872 AD. According to the sagas, Harald vowed not to cut or comb his hair until he had unified all of Norway, earning his byname. When he finally won, he received the title Fair Hair in celebration. Harald Hardrada, Harald Sigurdsson, was the last great Viking king who invaded England in 1066 and was killed at the Battle of Stamford Bridge just 3 weeks before the Norman conquest. His death at Stamford Bridge is generally considered to mark the end of the Viking Age. Haraldsson, son of a man named Harald, the army ruler, connects to the most consequential name in Norwegian political history. Number 11, OLSEN, the ancestor's relic. Norway's third most common surname, OLSEN is the third most common surname in Norway, held by 46,094 people as of 2022. It means son of Olaf. And Olaf in Old Norse, the name Olaf, means ancestor's relic or ancestor's descendant, from Anu and Leifr. It is a name that literally embeds ancestry into its meaning. The most famous historical bearer was King Olaf II of Norway, known as Olaf the Holy or Saint Olaf, who ruled from 1015 to 1028. He is the patron saint of Norway, credited with completing the Christianization of the country, and his death at the Battle of Stiklestad in 1028 made him a martyr. The cathedral in Trondheim, the Nidars Cathedral, was built over his grave and became one of the major pilgrimage sites of medieval Europe. Olsen, son of Olaf, is the third most common Norwegian surname, a direct echo of a name that shaped the entire religious and political identity of Norway. Number 10, THORSEN, THORVALDSEN, THORSTEINSEN, the names that carry a god. Here we reach a group of surnames that do something no other names on this list do. They carry the name of a god. Thor, from Old Norse Thor, was the god of thunder, strength, and the protection of mankind in Norse mythology. He was arguably the most widely worshipped of all the Norse gods, particularly among the common people and the warrior class. His hammer, Mjolnir, was both a weapon and a sacred symbol, so powerful that its image was carved into gravestones, worn as amulets, and hammered into Viking Age metalwork across Scandinavia. Norwegian surnames built on Thor include THORSEN, son of Thor, direct invocation of the thunder god in a patronymic; THORVALDSEN, son of Thorvald, combining Thor with Valdir, the thunder god's ruler. The greatest Norwegian sculptor, Bertel Thorvaldsen, bore this name. Thorsteinsen, son of Thorstein, combining Thor with Stein, Thor's stone. Documented extensively in the Land Namabok as a Viking Age personal name, every Thorsen, Thorvaldsen, or Thorsteinsen alive today carries the thunder god in their surname, not as mythology, but as living linguistic inheritance. Number 9. Leifsen. The heir, the name of the man who found a continent. Leif from Old Norse leifr means heir or descendant or what is left behind. It is a name that encodes inheritance, legacy, and continuation, the idea that a person carries forward something from those who came before. Leif Eriksson, Leif, son of Erik, used this name to sail west from Greenland 1000 AD and make landfall in North America at a place he called Vinland. The site identified with Vinland is Lons Os Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada, the only confirmed Viking Age settlement in North America, excavated in the 1960s and now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Leif's voyage predates Columbus by approximately 500 years. It is documented in 2 separate Icelandic sagas, the Saga of the Greenlanders and the Saga of Eric the Red, as well as supported by the archaeological evidence at Lons Os Meadows. Leifsen, son of Leif, the heir, carries the name of the man who connected 2 worlds half a millennium before history, usually credits. Number 8. Einarsen. The lone warrior, a name for those who fought alone. Einar from Old Norse Einar means lone warrior or one warrior. It combines ein meaning one or alone and ar meaning warrior. In a culture where collective combat, the shield wall, the ship's crew, the warband was the dominant military form, a name meaning lone warrior carried a specific, deliberate weight. To be the lone warrior was not a failure of belonging. It was an assertion of singular, exceptional capability, the warrior who could stand when everyone else had fallen. Einarsson, son of Einar, appears in the Icelandic sagas and is documented in Viking Age runic inscriptions. One of the most notable bearers was Einar Thambarskilfr, a Norwegian chieftain and legendary archer whose name appears in the King's sagas and who was said to be able to shoot an arrow through an ox. Number 7. Magnusson, the Great One, a name borrowed from Rome. This is the one name on this list that does not originate in the Old Norse word stock, and that makes it arguably the most historically interesting of all. Magnus comes from Latin magnus, meaning great. It entered the Norse world when King Magnus I of Norway was named after Charlemagne, Carolus Magnus, Charles the Great, by his father King Olaf the Holy, who had spent time at the Frankish court in exile. It was an extraordinary cultural moment, a Norse king giving his son a Latin name, borrowed from the greatest ruler of the Christian world, to signal Norway's entry into the orbit of European Christian civilization. The name Magnus then spread rapidly through Scandinavia because of the prestige it carried. By the 13th century, there had been 6 Norwegian kings named Magnus. Magnusson, son of the Great One, is a Norse-Latin hybrid, a living record of the moment when the Viking world began its transformation into medieval Christian Europe. Number 6. Grimsson, son of the Fierce One and Odin's own disguise. Grim, from Old Norse grimar, means fierce or masked. And this name has a dimension that none of the others on this list possesses. It was one of Odin's own names. In Norse mythology, Odin traveled the world in disguise, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a cloak to conceal his identity. One of his many names was Grimnir, the Masked One, the Hooded One, the Fierce One, to be named Grim in Viking Age. Scandinavia was to carry one of the chief god's own epithets. The name appears extensively in the sagas. In Egil's saga, the protagonist's grandfather is Kveldulf, and his father is Skallagrim. In the Landnámabók, the record of Iceland's settlement, Grimmer appears dozens of times as a personal name given to the first Norse settlers. Grimson, son of the fierce, masked one, is one of the deepest connections to Old Norse mythology available in a modern Norwegian surname. Number 5, Svensson, the young man and the name of the king who conquered England. Sven from Old Norse Svin means young man, boy, or servant. It sounds modest. It was anything but. The most significant historical bearer of this name was Sweyn Forkbeard Svin Tjugaskeg in Old Norse, king of Denmark, who launched repeated invasions of England beginning in 1003 and finally conquered the entire country in 1013, forcing King Ethelred the Unready to flee to Normandy. Sweyn became the King of England, the only Danish king ever to rule the whole island, though he died just 5 weeks after his coronation. His son Canute then reconquered England in 1016 and ruled the North Sea Empire, England, Denmark, Norway, and parts of Sweden simultaneously, one of the most powerful kings in early medieval Europe. Svensson, son of Sven, carries the name of a Viking king who conquered one of the most powerful kingdoms in Europe. The young man grew up to rule an empire. Number 4, Njordsen, son of the sea god, the rarest and most ancient. This name takes us deeper into Norse mythology than any other on this list. Njord was the Norse god of the sea, wind, and fishing. He was one of the Vanir, the older family of Norse gods associated with wealth, seafaring, and the bounty of the ocean. His home was Notun, the enclosure of ships, and he was invoked by sailors and fishermen before every voyage. The surname Njordsen, son of a man named Njord, is among the rarest on this list precisely because it is among the most ancient. In the later Viking Age, as Christianity spread through Scandinavia, names directly derived from pagan gods became less common. A family that retained a name like Nord into the era of surname formation was preserving something deliberately archaic, a connection to the pre-Christian Norse world that most families had moved away from. Njordsen today is extraordinarily rare, but where it exists, it carries one of the oldest layers of Norse identity available in any living surname. Number 3, Berserker-derived names, ULFSEN and BJÖRNSEN, the names of the wolves and bears, warrior identities. The Berserkers were real historical sources, including the works of the 13th century Icelandic historian Snorri Sturluson and contemporary accounts from English and Frankish chroniclers, document warriors who fought in what appears to have been an altered psychological state, extraordinary ferocity, apparent insensitivity to pain and wounds, and behavior that terrified opponents and sometimes their own allies. The two main types were the Berserker, the bear shirt who wore bear pelts, and the ULFSEN, the wolf skin who wore wolf pelts. Both categories channeled the spirit of their totemic animal in combat. Norwegian surnames that derive from these warrior traditions include names built on Ulf, meaning wolf, and Bjorn, meaning bear, combined with other warrior elements. BJÖRNSEN, son of Bjornulf, bear-wolf, is the combination of both totemic animals in a single name documented in the saga tradition. These names are rare today precisely because the Berserker tradition was suppressed as Christianity took hold. A family that preserved a name like ULFSEN into the surname era was keeping alive a memory of the oldest and most feared category of Viking warrior. Number 2, Knutsen and Knutsen, son of the king who ruled 3 countries at once, the Viking Empire. We are nearly at the end, and it is time for the surname that connects directly to the single most powerful king the Viking world ever produced. Knut, from Old Norse Knut, means knot. As a name, it carried the sense of something bound together, something unbreakable, and the man who bore it most famously bound together an empire. Canute the Great, known in English as Canute, became King of England in 1016, King of Denmark in 1018, and King of Norway in 1028. At the peak of his power, he ruled the entire North Sea, England, Denmark, Norway, and parts of Sweden simultaneously. This was the largest empire ever assembled by a Viking king, and it was achieved not only through military conquest, but through political genius. Canute governed England as an English king, issuing laws in the Anglo-Saxon tradition, patronizing English churches, and earning a reputation as one of the most capable rulers of his era. The famous story of Canute commanding the tide to stop, often misread as arrogance, was in fact a demonstration of humility. He set his throne on the beach to show his courtiers that no king, however powerful, could command the forces of nature. Only God could do that. Knutsen today, son of Canute, carries the name of the Viking world's most successful political architect. Not just a warrior who conquered, a king who built. Number 1, HANSEN, son of the High One, and the name that kept Norway Norwegian. We end with the name that, more than any other on this list, tells the story of what it meant to be Norwegian, not just in the Viking Age, but after it. Hakon, from Old Norse Hakon, combines ha and konrar. It means high descendant, exalted offspring. A name that encoded nobility into its very structure, not the nobility of title, but of lineage. The most significant historical bearer was Hakon the Good, Hakon Haraldsson, the youngest son of Harald Fairhair, the king who unified Norway. Hakon was fostered in England at the court of King Ethelstan, where he received a Christian education. When he returned to Norway and claimed the throne, he became the first Norwegian king to try to introduce Christianity peacefully, without the forced conversion that characterized other Scandinavian Christianization efforts. He failed in that mission. His Norwegian subjects were not ready, but he succeeded in something else, governing with a sense of justice and fairness that earned him the byname the Good. When Hakon died in battle in 961 AD, defending Norway against Danish invaders, his death was mourned with a poem, the Hakonarmal, composed by the skald Eyvinder Skaldaspiller, that placed him among the Einherjar, the chosen warriors of Valhall. It is one of the most beautiful elegies in the Old Norse literary tradition. The poem ends with these words spoken by the god Odin about the fallen king. Unbound will the wolf Fenrir roam before in his stead, so worthy a lord shall stand in his place. Hakonsen today, son of the High One, descendant of the exalted, carries a name that was given to kings, mourned by poets, and enshrined in the oldest literature of the Norse world. That is what these 20 names are, not just labels, not just genealogical data points. They are elegies. They are the way a culture remembered who it had been, long after the long ships had rotted away and the gods had been replaced and the language itself had shifted into something new. The names survived, and in surviving, they kept the memory alive. 20 surnames, 1,000 years of history, one naming system that refused to disappear. The Viking Age ended in 1066 at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, when Harald Hardrada fell with an arrow through his throat, fighting for a throne that was never his to win. The Longship era was over, but the names outlasted everything. They outlasted the longships, outlasted the gods, outlasted the language itself. They were frozen into Norwegian law in 1923, and they are being spoken today in living rooms and offices and school registers with no awareness of what they once meant. Now you know what they meant. If you carry one of these surnames, or if someone in your family does, you are carrying a fragment of Old Norse, a piece of the Viking world encoded in the name you were born with. That's what a surname really is, not just a label, a memory. Tell me in the comments, do you carry one of these names? And if you've ever looked into where your surname comes from, what did you find? If this video was worth your time, a like genuinely helps this channel. Subscribe for more deep dives into the bloodlines that shaped history. See you in the next one.